Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world. And we're all over the world today to share their insights and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi. I'm the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we drive revenue for companies by making sure they're seen as the authority and expert in their industry versus just another product or service. And I'm joined today by Elsa Morgan. And Elsa, I'm so grateful to have you here today. And thank you for taking time out of your busy life and busy day to spend time with me here today.
Thank you for having me. For me, it's a privilege to be on anybody's podcast because it's their platform and they have their own audience. So for me, it's an honor to be here, Heidi, and I think highly of you. So I'm grateful to be here.
I appreciate that, and I think very highly of you, and I'm grateful for your time. And so I'm going to give a brief introduction about you, and then we're going to dive into all the goodness.
Sure.
So Elsa Morgan is based in Brisbane, Australia. So like I said, we're all over the world. She is a wife to her best friend and soulmate and mother to two beautiful children, has built successful businesses since 2015 and generated much success, traveled the world and spoken on hundreds of stages. She launched her own company from scratch in mid-2021, has generated over 7 figures since. Elsa has been featured in Forbes and Yahoo Finance for her impact around the world, helping women to build successful 6-figure businesses. She is a philanthropist, contributing every month to UNICEF's Education for Every Girl to give access to education for school-age girls, and she gives up her time for worthy charities. Her company, the Queenie Effect, is on a mission to impact over 1 million women to build successful 6-figure businesses through providing access to tools, knowledge, and frameworks. So Elsa, I gave a little bit of a background about you, and I appreciate your bio and information, but can you tell us more about you and your business and the role that you play within your business?
No problem. So I'm the CEO and founder of my company, the Queenie Effect. Originally, when I started my company, it wasn't a company, it was just me trading as myself back in 2015. It was really just a side hustle. I was just side hustling for about 3 years and then decided to go all in and build successful businesses. And then I retired myself out. I did a 90-day plan and I executed on that. And less than 6 months later, I was able to retire myself out. And it was through that, in that period, that I really got good at what I did. And that's how people had, women in particular over 40, that kept asking me, like, how am I generating all this success, traveling with my family, speaking on stages? And I was able to coach with another company, a coaching company, for about 2 years. So that was my apprenticeship. And I got to familiarize myself with what was like a coaching session, etc., etc. And then found myself launching my own thing in mid-2021 when we were all in lockdown. And here in Australia, we had hardcore lockdowns. At that time, I was living in Melbourne, and Melbourne were the hardest hit. And there was a time when we were in lockdown for about 6 months. And it was in that period that I decided to launch my own coaching program, thinking that it was only ever going to be that. It was just going to be me helping women over 40, but it's grown to be so much more than that, because through the evolution of that, it's now become a proper company, and it's generated multiple 7 figures. We not only provide best-in-class programs for all of our clients through, one-on-one and best-in-class events, but we also do book publications where we showcase female entrepreneurs and their stories. And to date, we've had over 100 best-selling authors through 6 collaboration books. And the role that I play is the visionary, and obviously my role is to fast forward like 5 years, 10 years, and where we want to take this business. But also I'm a CEO that also likes to get in the mix of my business and understand what's actually happening at ground level. My husband retired himself out of his career because I needed somebody with technical expertise, technology, and also someone to handle the financial component, because some of the regulations are for small business here in Australia are really quite strict, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. And the time that it was taking me to get everything organized was taking me away from the things that I should be focused on. So he took on the role of financial controller and also looking on the technological arm. And we also contract, VAs. We have a team of contractors out that we hire as and when we need. And we also have a business operations manager that helps us from an operational perspective from the back end, because sometimes, in fact, not sometimes, all the time. It's good to have eyes, a different set of eyes looking at the operational side of the business, especially someone that's had operational experience and human resources experience. So we're very grateful for the expert that we have, and we lean on her to give us some feedback onto, some of the things that we think look fancy and might be really good, but from a rolling out perspective, it might not necessarily, the execution may not necessarily align with what we want to achieve. So it's been to be quite frank, Heidi, it's been a very much a growth journey, not just me personally, myself as in my brand, which I really take pride on, but also stepping into that CEO and founder role. Nobody really prepares you for, not even the books can really prepare you for what you're going to experience on a day-to-day basis. And then I don't know. I don't know what a lot of other CEOs, founder CEOs say, but for me, the minute that I hit the first million, I then wanted to go to double, and now we're working towards 10, because becoming a $10 million company, and to be in alignment with that in terms of processes, staff, also myself, and learning to delegate well, right, and hiring well, a lot more challenging than anybody can ever prepare you for.
Yeah, and we had talked a little bit about the scenes. Thank you for sharing all of that. And also behind the scenes, we talked a little bit about different levels of your business. There's
Yeah.
different priorities that you need to be
Yeah.
focused on. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, you had mentioned that you came in 2021 around like during the pandemic. So what were it's in it and it's very crowded now because a lot of people did the
Yeah.
same thing. They came in during the
Yeah.
pandemic because everybody was virtual. So they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll start an online business. So how
Yeah.
can business owners stand out? Like, what are the things that you did to stand out in a crowded marketplace? And how can business owners stand out in that crowded marketplace, especially if they're just getting started?
Sure. This is a really good question, and I have to tell you that I can go. This could easily be a separate podcast on its own. So I'll try and be as short as I can because I'm really passionate about this particular thing. So for me, I was very fortunate that I had done such a great job in the online space prior, because I shared my journey. I documented my journey so well that when I was coaching with somebody else and then decided to move into myself, there was already demand for my coaching. So I was already solving a problem that was needed out there. I identified that there were women over 40. Back then in 2021, believe it or not, there weren't that many female coaches out there that were specifically speaking to women over 40 who wanted to build a business. There's a lot of well-established male coaches. There were back then. But there weren't any specifically speaking the way that I was speaking, in terms of no BS for women over 40 and teaching them exactly what to do. And so I had demand already. So by the time that I launched, there was a ready-made demand for me. But my best advice for people, first and foremost, is to do your homework and make sure that there is demand. The mistake that a lot of people make when they start their businesses is they like the idea of something, but if it's not proven or there's no proof of concept, then most of what you do is going to be unknown, which is not a bad thing. Like, if you're creating demand, it's not a bad thing. What it's just going to mean is that there's some things that you're just not going to know. There's elements of your journey that you simply won't know, and you just have to make peace with that. On the flip side, if there is demand and you bring a unique perspective to your offer, which is what separates you. You put yourself in a really strong position because you know that there's already demand, and here's you with your own unique offer, framework, perspective, results, etc. And that will literally set you apart and puts you in a strong position than someone that doesn't have a proof of concept. Right. But first and foremost, Heidi, what I do say to people that are starting out is this, and this is the one that I can go on forever about. A lot of people come into the online space and they realize that they need to use social media for their business, and the separation of having it known as a social media profile versus it becoming a digital platform to showcase their personal brand is the biggest transformation in itself in the very first instance, right? A lot of people really struggle with that transformation, like moving over across, because most people that come in and never have experience have come from the corporate world or, from the industrial revolution, the industrial structure, where there's some processes in place that like the 9 to 5 and set wages and job description, etc. And kind of thinking that similar sort of ideas are in place in the digital space, and it's a total new world, and there's no real discussion. I think it's only really been discussed now, this how different the digital age is to what most of us know work to be. And so when they come into the digital space, they start doing work, and the perception is that nothing is happening, or that things aren't moving, or this didn't quite work out the way that I thought, etc. And little do they know is that's the way it's meant to happen. Because unknown, in the 9 to 5 space, everything is set. Like you go to work, you do your job, you have a set of tasks, you get paid, and there's there's a lot of known variables. You know exactly how much annual leave you can take out, what sick pay, what the conditions are. In the digital world, you make it up as you go along. Like there's nothing that other than what the activities that you do. That's the only thing that you control. And so the migration of you understanding that your personal profile is no longer your personal profile, it is literally a digital platform to showcase your personal brand. And first and foremost, I think the biggest learning that any small business owner should understand is that your personal brand is everything. You could be good at what you do and you can have the best product in the world, but if your brand doesn't stand out and doesn't align with people's values and there's no connection, you don't have much chance to be able to be successful, because this is the way that people buy.
So let's talk about the personal brand. You just brought that up, which is a key point. And I don't know, is B2C different than B2B when it comes to building a brand? Because with B2B, it might be a little different, but I know in the B2C space that personal brand is super important. Either way, regardless of B2C or B2B, you still need to build that trust, know, like, and trust factor. You still got to have that trust. And so that's really important. So many entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with getting visible. They're building a business based on their expertise, their zone of genius, which is a positive, but also can be a negative when we're building a business. There's a lot of things that can hold us back within that topic, and we'll get there. But what marketing strategies have been most effective for you in building a strong personal brand? Because you do have a strong personal brand in the digital space.
I've gotten better, I believe, Heidi, in the last 3 years, though. I have to tell you, the thing that really moved me to really get good at this is acceptance of self. And this is a lot harder to do. Just to your point around B2B, B2C, the CEO and founder of the company will still need to have a personal brand. You see that with the likes of Richard Branson with Virgin. You see that with the likes of Gary Vee with VaynerMedia, even Elon Musk with Tesla. They are still building their personal brands, right? Because if the founder has a strong personal brand, then the customer base will have a stronger affiliation with the CEO or executive or founder. And so whatever they position from there on, and because there's this trust of an alignment of values, then whatever they position, their company positions, there's a stronger opportunity for uptake and connection. Do you know what I mean? And I know that to be true, especially with Steve Jobs when he was the CEO of Apple. I mean, I became an Apple person because of Steve Jobs. Right. So I still think there's a lot of principles in terms of personal brand that apply with B2B, but more so with B2C. And so first and foremost, as difficult as this sounds, acceptance of self is so super important, because when you develop a personal brand, it is literally putting yourself out there with zero limitations, with zero where you don't hold yourself back, because what you want to do is attract those people that are in alignment with your values, that can see you with all your flaws, with all your success, and really trust in what you bring to the marketplace. At the same time, that you have to bring something of value that is in connection with what your avatar is looking for. This is one of the things that I think a lot of small business founders really struggle with, is to be able to showcase their journey of how they got to where they got to, and showcasing the experience, the promise, what that would feel like for their customer in terms of when they arrive there, or when they purchase something, or when they opt into a coaching program, for example. What would that mean for them in terms of feelings, in terms of, their own personal experience? Because the promise has to match the actual experience. But a lot of, entrepreneurs and small business owners really struggle with actually articulating what that would look like. And what they tend to do is just position the product and just the things, the features of it, versus by using this, you know, you will have like an elevated experience, or you will feel like you're the ultimate rich girl by wearing this, you know, red hot lipstick. You'll be the wealthiest version of you. And suddenly women feel like, wow, like, can you imagine wearing this red hot lipstick and I feel so wealthy? That's the piece, is really articulating the journey. So for me, I talk about not only bringing problem aware and desire based marketing, but also what would that mean like for them in terms of removing the stress, in terms of being a lot more lighter, a lot more happier, a lot more focused, a lot more empowered. And so suddenly people can make connections through feelings, through emotions, because that's one of the things that we have in common, is we all can feel. And if you can help your audience to feel something, then you're on the money. The other thing too is proof of concept, is not only through your own journey, but through showcasing your client testimonials, through showcasing how they've been able to come from wherever they've started and they've all applied the same process that you have used, and then they've received an outcome. That brings in that relatability piece. You know, for me, I don't mind being the unicorn and the person so unrelatable, because I want people to see what the end game could be for them. Like, I'm constantly stretching my own game, and then I'm stretching the end game for everyone that's following me, because I don't want them to think like, oh, that's it. I want them to know like, wow, look at all the possibilities. But at the same time, I'm showing people that are along the journey and how they're moving up and up and up and up and up. So then, you know, other women can do the same. It's like, you know, that whole, when one woman steps up and speaks for, you know, for other women, they're helping other, you know, thousands and thousands of other women. And that's what I think of every time that I put something out there. How is this going to impact not just the one person that I'm speaking to, but thousands of others that are currently thinking to themselves, I really want to get out of this job. I really hate what I'm doing. I'm sick and tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I really want to start traveling. I really want to start spending more time with my children. Just, that's what I think about every time I put myself out there, is what does this mean for women as a whole?
So you mentioned, thank you for sharing all that. That was incredible. And, I want to talk about your journey, because it's been a road for you, right? You
Mhm.
started, you started in 2021, now in 2025, and you've created a seven-figure business. And many people look at that and go, wow, that was really fast, right? For you, it may not feel that fast, but
Yeah.
like you said, you
Yeah.
also came from already being in demand.
Yeah.
So you built this successful business from the ground up. But what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in the early days,
Yeah.
and how did you overcome those challenges?
This is a really good question, because I really want to hold space for people that get started. And I say this to my clients as well when they get started, because I didn't feel that I was worthy. I didn't feel that I was worthy to be invited into someone's journey and then helping them to achieve. And, you know, this is all that internal work that you have to do. And so because there was a level of unworthiness, my price points reflected that. And so what would happen is I would invite an avatar that was at that price point, and yet there was a misalignment with my delivery and the client that actually came in. So that's first and foremost, one of the biggest challenges is I never really got clear on my avatar, like getting so specific with my avatar and set the boundary. I was like something for everybody and invited everybody, and there was just so many challenges. Let's just say that. And it was extremely painful for me, because I come from a space of good, and yet at the same time I was very confused as to why that kept happening, which is why I ended up opting into the program of the mentor that we both have mutual, and to really get clear on why repeated patterns like that kept happening throughout my entrepreneurial career up until that point. So that was number one, is not having that clarity meant that I was attracting people that I probably was maybe not aligned with. I mean, I did help them, but I could have helped so much more, and so many more women scale up to six figures a lot quicker had I become a lot more clearer with my avatar and who I wanted to help. So that's number one. Number two was payment solution. I literally launched with Zoom, because it was initially just my one-on-one coaching at the time. So I had Zoom, and I also had PayPal. Nothing against PayPal, but for me, it is not a business processing provider. So we had a lot of instances where people were putting in, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but when you're starting off small, every dollar counts. And it's when you're the main provider as well, every dollar counts as well. And people took advantage of PayPal's, I call them lax return policies, and they always go with a buyer. And so there were a lot of instances that way. And I just don't think that they're really aligned with a service-based business versus some of the other payment providers there. So I'm not doing my homework in that regard as well. And then the third thing that I would tell you is I was so naive, Heidi, because I had no idea about scalability at that time. I didn't even know that existed. I literally just launched my one-on-one, and sure enough, I maxed out my calendar, and I was so burnt out because I give everything in my one-on-ones. Like, I deliver and over-deliver and make sure that my clients are really well looked after. And when I had not only was I not charging what I should be charging, so my price points were low, I was extremely tired because that's all I was doing was one-on-one. And then I'm thinking, like, how do people end up making $1 million from here? Because I'm maxed out in my calendar here. God always provides. I'm faith-based. God always provides. And sure enough, there was this mentor that showed up in my feed talking about scaling to group. If you're maxed out in your one-on-one and, have you thought about scaling to a group offer? And I'm going, what does that mean? What does that even look like? And so I decided to invest and learn all about that. And sure enough, that's when I started to learn how to scale my businesses and rely less on one-on-one and rely more on being one-to-many. And learning also how to unpack my intellectual property and designing it in such a way so that clients could get a result in the group format. So those were the three challenges. And I can tell you that they're common problems, but I want people to know that just if you're there right now, that doesn't mean that you get to stay there. You can totally move from where you are. You've just got to make some different choices, and you can quickly move up to 7 figures if you really just put the focus, the time, and the energy, and you just have to prioritize those changes.
Yeah, everything can shift, but you have to make the choice to choose different, right? To make the change. And I do agree with you on the PayPal. I love PayPal. I have it. I use it for a lot of
Me
things.
too.
It's like Zelle.
I use it for personal stuff.
Yeah, Zelle, and
But I don't accept it.
I'll buy product with, there's certain things you don't want to be accepting in business, and that brings up systems, which I want to talk about. But like I said, I love PayPal, and I buy a lot of product in that because then I can track it. And like you said, PayPal is good for the consumer. But if you're running a business, there's other platforms that are going to give you a 50-50 shot at sharing your perspective on things and be able to, for some reason, if you get somebody that disputes something, you have the opportunity to lay out everything that you've done and show your hand. Where in an instance that unfortunately it doesn't work that way. So I agree. I've told my clients that the same thing. I'm like, I wouldn't recommend that at all. It's your choice, but it's not my. But I do agree it's great for other things. So let's talk about systems and processes. Actually, like you talked about something else too, but I want to move to AI real quick before we move to that, which is part of systems and processes. So with AI, and you talked about your proprietary processes and methods, which is a great, pivotal point into moving into AI. So what are some AI-driven tools or strategies that can help businesses grow faster and more efficiently? And also, what is your recommendation on those? Like, what would you share to people who are nervous and say, I have proprietary things that I want to protect, so I'm scared to use AI because I don't want that being shared with the public?
Okay, so I have a very particular opinion about that too. So AI, we use AI a lot in our business from a systems and processes point of view. And I think if you're a small business, AI could be one of your best assets that you can have in your business. We use it for anything that has repetitive tasks. So, any Zoom recordings, it is totally driven by AI and uploaded into our portal, which is Kajabi. We use Kajabi. We also use AI via the way of when I do my podcast recordings. And so what we do is we have it transcribe and convert it into a newsletter for LinkedIn from that episode as well. We also we get it to transcribe, and this is all automated. We get it to transcribe as well for my email sequence, and also on my website as well. I've just got a bit of a brain fart for my blog. And so we use AI. It's all documented, like process, sorry, where we do the recording and transcribes the whole episode, and then it starts spitting out the newsletter, the blog, the email sequence. Same with any sort of training that I do. We have AI summarize it, and what we do with that is we use that for we bank it, because if I'm ever stuck for ideas in terms of writing newsletters, articles, content, I will go to that bank and pull out content from, previous trainings, etc. There's some of your AI, proprietary stuff that you can use over and over again. In terms of the generic platforms that are out there, I mean, I use ChatGPT, the paid version, practically every single day. And the way that I use it is to stay ahead of trends, to stay ahead of the curve. I'm always looking out for what's coming in terms of workplace behavior, in terms of business practices, in terms of social media trends. Once a week, I just do a bit of a deep dive into ChatGPT, and I ask it a lot of questions, right? What I also do is what I did at the start of the year, which is so surprising for me, because there were elements of what it came back to me with that I would never had considered, because I use it as a sounding board. I use it as someone that is like my research assistant, but at the same time, it has access to a lot more information than I could ever have access to or know in that regard. So what I did is I inputted what my 5 and 10 year goals were, and what my programs and systems were in place now for the business as it stood right now, and what my personal goals and what my life was going to be like in 10 years time. And then I asked it to tell me what I didn't know that I needed to know, and what would it recommend from a business planning and strategy point of view, that I needed to implement to be able to achieve the result that I wanted in 10 years time. And it gave me a whole detailed strategy around my business, some of which we've stripped out and started looking at how we can apply this. So it's going to give you information that I don't think any advisor could ever know, because it's got access to this, endless pit of information to pull through. Having said that, though, I'm someone that is not afraid to put my information out there. I'm not afraid of AI replicating that at all, because I'm just someone that is just driven by impact. And so whilst there are elements of my tools and my brand that are protected from a trademark point of view, where someone is deliberately just mimicking me or copying me with no regard to all the work that I've done. There's so much of my content that is out there and people just openly replicate. I don't get hung up on that kind of stuff. I know some people do, and rightly so. I can totally understand, especially if they've put in years of work. But a lot of what I do is more about consistency, is more about, this is my point of difference, is consistency, no BS. It's about the compounding effect. And most of that is already well known. I'm just a walking, talking example of that, even though my framework might be unique and that's trademark, but everything else, I just think is out there and very general. But the way that we use AI is literally to save time, improve response time for our clients as well. We're in the process right now is to create a version of me that can answer the same kind of questions over and over again for our clients, and also using AI to help us to create our proprietary app to help our clients to map out their journey and keep a track of their journey as well. So from that regard, we use it effectively to be able to customize to our client, but also give us, better response times, better customer experience, and also save time. Because a lot of the times, like the newsletter, the blog, once upon a time before I embraced AI, I was doing it all from scratch, and I was spending so much time doing that. And now it's so much easier just pulling it out of content that I've already done and just positioning it in the same way. And it's just a different format.
Yeah, everything you said is spot on. And I really love that you tapped into, like, you don't have the fear. And the fear, if you have fear around the usage of AI,
Yeah.
you're going to be burning out sooner than later, because you can't keep doing this over and over and over again on your own, because that's why we had to do it. And AI is not going away. It's already evolving. And if you haven't jumped on that boat already, you're kind of behind the 8 ball, saying, so you have a choice whether you're going to jump on and allow it to bring in more of efficiency and productivity into your business. And it'll also support your teams, which I haven't been able to ask you about yet. I have so many more questions for you, Elsa, and I know we're running out of time. So I'm going to try and
always come back
what I can get. But I mean, we might have to do another one of these.
Yeah.
But no,
Like,
I agree with you on the like, and that taps into fear. And we're not going to talk about fear on this
yeah,
episode because it's really about business growth. And we're going to assume that at this point, people are walking through fear. Like that's a different
yes,
conversation. And we'll bring that to the Bishi podcast. But you allow the fear of proprietary processes and your systems going into AI and somebody taking them, like you said, you're
yeah,
consistently showing up. Nobody can use that information like you can. And that goes back
exactly.
to what you originally spoke about at the beginning when we talked about branding. When it comes to branding, people are going to know what is your message and what's not your message. And if somebody else is
Yeah,
branding they're working on their brand and they're branding somebody else's messaging, it's not going to land. It's not going to connect.
no,
It's authentic. So
I
don't
have
even
stories
worry
about
about
that.
it when it comes to AI. Just there's too many other things to worry about. Don't worry about somebody stealing, taking
No,
because they could take it off your social media anyway without AI.
exactly,
Let's let it go with
exactly.
that. So I do want to talk about teams and I have so many more questions, but I
Sure.
want to get into business growth. I want to get into marketing.
Yeah,
I want to get into your goals, your
yeah,
bottlenecks. But when it comes to teams, because you mentioned
yeah,
at the beginning your husband joined your team. Like
yeah,
he basically left his job, right?
yeah.
His and that paycheck and jumped into supporting you when we're scaling and we're building teams, we're not talking about solopreneurs or anything that we're scaling now. Do you
Sure.
have any advice on who your first hire should be? Does that differ depending on your business and your company? And how important is the really spending time on the culture? Like how important is
Mm.
culture in your company for growth, for business growth?
Yeah. So for me, if you don't have the luxury of having someone like my husband, he would 25 years experience in cybersecurity and technology. So that was his wheelhouse. So to hire someone like him, I would still need to invest a six-figure amount. So I was very, very lucky that he has that technological aspect of business that he could bring in, plus the security component as well. And then he just had to learn the financial piece in terms of the business. Having someone to help you with that, I'm not quite sure what the regulations are around in the US, but to have someone that's going to be able to help you from a tech side, financial side, and even admin side is fantastic. That's why, like I say, like a business ops person or a VA that you could stretch their capability and help them to grow into that person that takes on that tech side, especially if you're someone that relies on technology a fair bit. It's good for you to know elements of it, but you don't need to know everything, which is why had someone like my husband take that over because that's their wheelhouse. And you could go into a deep dive in technology and never come back out. There's just so much capability out there. And then at the same time, this is a big issue that I find with people that get started is they over commit. Like they commit to things they really don't need. Like really, if you're a solopreneur or to begin with, and even as you're scaling, my advice is to keep it simple, stupid as much as possible. And so he brought that perspective to me about, no, we won't need that just yet. So we migrated to Kajabi less than 12 months ago. We had the opportunity to use Kajabi when we first got started for the investment that was required and what it offered. It was just an overcommitment at that time. So we've moved to Kajabi when we were ready to move to Kajabi, and it's been the best decision for us because we know it's going to help us and support us to take us to $10 million. So always make sure, for me, if you don't have someone like I had my husband, hire a VA that is more than just a VA, just a little bit more, maybe a little bit more versed in operations, maybe has an aspect of managing technology in some regard so that they can take on a little bit of the admin tasks that doesn't get you bogged down, but also has, a little bit of tech know-how. And then you converse them into the operation side because having someone like that is going to take off so much of the load if there's issues that come about or anything like that, someone that you can trust. That's the piece, when you are scaling up is learning how to hire properly.
Mm.
So when I first got started, I didn't pay too much attention about someone that could really get my brand and get my culture and my vision because I won't say I'm a hard ass. I'm hard on myself. I'm a lot easier and flexible on people that have contracted with us. And I've really had to learn to slow down and take the time to verse people with why I am who I am and the standards that I have and why their input into my company matters and what the implications are that, even if they don't think that what they do matters, it does, because it could affect a client experience. It could affect the way that we deliver, a course, a program, or it could even affect my energy. Not that that's their responsibility, but I really place focus on energy management, which is why I've slowed down to make sure that I hire properly. So then I can say, okay, this is the expectation. This is what I need you to do. Give me some pieces or show me what you can do so I understand your capability, because I need them to know that we're moving and I want to be able to give you something and you be able to give it back to me. And yes, people are going to make mistakes. Yes, maybe there's going to be some learning that they have to do, but I also need to know that there's commitment to want to learn. There's commitment to want to grow. Never really placed attention to that. So that's a real focus for me right now, is really being, focus on who I hire. And so even my husband, and you can happily interview him as well, but even my husband has had to buy into the culture and the vision of where I want to take this, right? It's very different for him to be in a senior management role where he was in a big company, talking about cybersecurity and all and regulations, etc., and then coming into this small business that we're growing, to 10 million, and understanding how different the digital landscape is and how quickly things can change, and the expectation from clients. And that's the reason why I have very high standards for myself in terms of what I do. But then I also explained to him, and we've sat down, what his role and why it matters. And I say that to everybody, your role matters because these are some of the things that could happen. So just know that even though you may not be front facing, it still affects every aspect of our business. And it's a culture of customer first. So what's best for the customer? What's the end goal for the customer? What does this change mean for our clients? Will this affect the way that our clients have an experience with us? So it's always with the client in mind. And if it doesn't elevate the client or it doesn't better the client experience, I just won't do it. And so my advice to people that are scaling up is, number one, don't get caught up that you need to invest more to grow faster. One of the best advice that I got from an 8-figure mentor is get really good with knowing the basic fundamentals of your business, like know your sales processes, get a cash flow system in place that's working, have your social media and your branding in place. Like, these are all things that have to be in place and standard operation procedures in place before you start delegating out there and investing, because otherwise you're building on a house of cards. Like, it's literally going to fall into place. And I tried to scale way quicker at one point in time than we were prepared to, and it could never ever happen because we didn't have the systems and processes in place to support it. So there tends to be an overinvestment from people to go, okay, well, now I need this person and this person and this person and this person. But unless you have the systems and processes in place and really understand how to build the business from ground up and know how to overcome objections, and know how to manage your money, and know like the minimum amount that you need your business to run every single month. Like, these are all things that you must know. Then there's no point in you looking at scaling just yet.
Yeah. So let's talk about some challenges, because I want to get there before we wrap up. Because it's always good for other founders and business owners to hear challenges that other people are facing. So what do you find is the biggest bottleneck in your business right now? And how are you planning on overcoming that?
So for me, I'm in the process of hiring, because I'm being asked to speak on stages a lot more, and also writing my first strategic book. And I literally have like 10 books in my head, but I'm leading in with one. And so taking myself out of some of the day-to-day and delegating what's not important and for people has been a process to make sure that we're in alignment. But again, I've committed to making the time to do that. So the biggest challenge is me. I always say that the biggest bottleneck is the founder, and also then hiring the right way and in alignment with the culture. It's so important. I would rather hire someone who is willing to grow and learn and skill up than hire an expert that is not culturally aligned. That's what I was trying to get that before. So my philosophy is hire the right person that's in alignment with my brand, and you can teach them and mold them into someone that is part of the team and will fight for you, like be a ride or die person. And that takes time, energy, and focus, but I think it pays off in the end when you find the right people. And then the other challenge is making sure that like we have a strong cash flow position, but also to get there is also a process for anybody wanting to scale up, is to make sure that you understand how to manage your funds, how to make sure that you are adequately putting money aside for your taxes, your obligations to the government, your obligations to run your business at a minimum, and then also to be able to invest into projects and anything else that you need at the time. And then the last thing that I would say is to when you work on yourself as a founder, it is so easy to get caught up into investing in a whole bunch of other things, thinking that it's going to move you quicker. The only thing that will move you quicker is you. Is getting really good to, in knowing who you are and what it is that you stand for and what it is that you want to bring to the world to be able to change the world and create a ripple effect. Because once you understand that and you go and showcase that, people will be in alignment with you. But more importantly, for me, the gut instinct has really come into play. And my gut is never, ever wrong with decisions, because I'm really, really clear on, if something doesn't feel right, then I just don't go there. I hope that makes sense, Heidi. And
It does.
coupled with that as well is, I lost my point. It is about self-awareness, because knowing who you are. I was gonna make a point that's been really pivotal in my journey, and I've lost it. It's okay.
It'll come
Sorry.
back if it's supposed to.
Yeah,
Everything is supposed, it'll
yeah,
happen. It'll come back if it's supposed
yeah.
to.
But it's come back. Just not being afraid to make a decision. Do you understand? Like, I think a lot of people don't want to make a decision because they're scared that it's going to be the wrong decision. Not making the decision is actually the
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 wrong
wrong decision
decision.
in my. So make a decision. If it works, great. It was the right decision. If it doesn't work, then you've learned. So you can't lose. Just make a decision and move on. And don't be afraid to back yourself, because at the end of the day, you've got to be your biggest, your biggest cheerleader.
Cheerleader.
And a lot of
Yeah.
people, yeah, yeah. And so in terms of, you talk about challenges, one of the things, not for me personally, but I know with women that I speak to, is they don't want to be their biggest cheerleader. They feel like, oh, that's bragging. But, if we're talking about personal brand, if you don't go and advocate for yourself, no one's going to come and advocate for you.
Nobody
Like
will.
Mel Robbins says, no one's coming to save you. You've got to go and save yourself. You've got to go and put yourself out there. You've got to be your biggest cheerleader and celebrating you. And then people will pay attention, because suddenly you're winning, and nobody's going to cheer for you harder than yourself. If you have this expectation that everyone's going to cheer for you first and then you feel worthy, the other way around, cheer for yourself the hardest, the most, celebrate every single thing, because unbeknownst to a lot of people, when you're building something for yourself, you're doing something that about 98% of people will never, ever do. And so that in itself separates you from anybody else out there. And you should celebrate that at the very minimum.
I love that. So good. Yeah. You be your biggest cheerleader and celebrate all the wins, because again, be your loudest proponent out there. So good. And such a good reminder. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to put two questions in one. So
Sure.
if we were to revisit this conversation, Elsa, in a year from now, what does
Yeah.
success look like for you? And that couples with what are your like 6-month or yearly goals?
What does success look like for me in a year's time? Well, our company will be a $2 million per year business, and we will have a evergreen program that is being touted as the best in class program for thousands of women, because they're getting the breakthroughs that they desire. And I'll have a New York Times best-selling book, because people will understand how consistency plays a massive part in the journey to transform your life. But if by chance that doesn't happen, just living life in itself is a success, if I can be honest. Not to downplay my goals, but I feel so incredibly privileged to be living this life, to be able to achieve the things that I've achieved. I've always just at the very minimum wanted to be able to take my kids to school on my terms and not have to report to anybody, and I'm here now. And I want that for every single parent out there. And as long as I have that, I have everything. And my husband, of course, as well, but I have everything. So anything beyond that, like the things that I've spoken about, is a bonus, but that's what success is for my business. Right. And for me personally is really working on having more time for me as well, and really understanding who I am so that way I can impact the world on a bigger scale. In terms of 5 years, 10 years time, we'll be well and truly a $10 million company. And big outrageous goal that I have, Heidi, I don't care that I'm putting it out there, is we have the 2032 Olympics. And I would love for my company to be one of the sponsors.
It's going to happen. I can already see it. It's happening.
And so, it's an outrageous goal, right? I don't even know what the investment is yet, but I have it written down to find out. But I don't even know if that the information is out there. But I would definitely love to have our company front and center purely to inspire future generations and women out there to go out and just pursue their business, to be able to build six figures on their terms, and then create generational wealth for their family.
I love it. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait. I know I'm going to see your name out there, the 2032 Olympics. So I'm going to put it on my calendar and look for you out there for sure. So Elsa, how can people connect with you and reach you?
My main pages are Facebook and Instagram. So facebook.com/Elsa B. Morgan, and also Instagram is at The Real Elsa Morgan. I also have my own YouTube, which is Elsa Morgan, the Consistency Queen, which is my video podcast. But you can also hop onto my website, elsamorgan.com, and you can send me an email.
Yeah. So, and she is the consistency queen. And I really wanted to talk about that too, the importance of consistency, but consistency is key. And Elsa is the queen of consistency. She shows up consistently all the time. If you just go onto her Facebook right now, you will see how much she puts out there and how much she shares, and she gives it all away. Elsa practices what she preaches. She does what she says. She walks the talk. So if you want, definitely connect with Elsa. She's amazing, as you've just heard her here today. Elsa, is there anything else that you'd like to share that I didn't get to ask you about?
I know I kind of touched on it before, but I want to really impress upon your audience that everything is available for you. We haven't touched on this, but I was financially bankrupt after the global financial crisis in 2009. So literally wiped out. And I've been able to rebuild my life and build life on my terms since then. So for anybody who's listening right now and thinking that this is not possible and available, I challenge that. If there's so many resources out there, like even on YouTube, you could learn how to start a business and skill yourself up in no time, and start something for yourself. I've got countless stories of entrepreneurs that have made it big. Even yourself, Heidi, is a great example. And I want everybody to know that life on your terms is available. It's available, and anybody can do this. And I really want to impress upon that, especially for women, because we all get to live the life that we desire. We just got to go and do it.
Beautiful. I love that message. It's one of my biggest messages that I lean on so much, is that everybody gets to have what they want, and they get to create the businesses in life that they deserve and they dream of, right? It's all possible. Thank you, Elsa, for being here today. For you listening, all of Elsa's information is in our show notes. If you weren't able to go check her out on your phone right now as you're listening to us, go check out the show notes. We've got you covered. If you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and comment. Leave us a comment. Leave Elsa a comment. Connect with Elsa on social media, Facebook, all the places, on her website, and let her know that you heard her here. And also, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast right now, we would love a 5-star review. And also share this episode. Allow more women, allow more business owners to get to receive the information and receive the expertise of the beautiful Elsa Morgan. Thank you, Elsa, so much for being here today. I'm so grateful for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Heidi.
Thank you for listening to the Business Growth Spotlight podcast. We will see you on the next episode.